and welcome back to Promoted, the podcast that gets you promoted to be great when you get there. I am Renee Wootton, aerospace engineer, pilot, all things aviation, and we are here today with my co-host, Michael Furey. Michael, where are you calling in from today? How are you?
Well, I think the Gubby country, if I'm not mistaken, up in here in the beautiful Sunshine Coast. I am good. I'm a director of a company, a few companies actually, a business owner. I call myself a chief research officer because I love researching stuff, and also a speaker. So yeah, and super pumped to talk about this topic, Renee. It's one very, very close to my heart today. So how are you going?
Oh, that's fantastic. I am good. I'm calling in from Larrakia country, and always a pleasure catching up. Today, we're talking about something that's quite relevant for you as an individual that runs your own business. Today, we want to talk about at a certain point in your career, I think as you build your self-confidence, you get great experience, more and more people start thinking about one day I'd like to run my own business. Should I run my own business? And we wanted to talk about that today because we jumped on the phone this morning and Michael's had a big week running his own business. And I think it's really live for you right now. And I think these are the best sorts of conversations that come out of, actually living and breathing these experiences and then being able to share them back with our listeners. So tell us about your week, Michael. And we'd love to hear why you started your own business.
Well, I think, like for a lot of people, and I speak to a lot of people about this as well, is that they think, and they're right, that freedom is typically the number one when people think about their own business, their ability to work for themselves, to be free of their boss, they can turn up when they want, they don't have to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, they don't have to commute, they don't have to do all this kind of, if I just didn't have to put up with Tracy from accounts, then life would be a lot better. And I think, in many ways, like I'm a huge proponent for people running their own business because all of those things are really great. I think what I see so frequently is people also misunderstand there's a whole other part to it. Yes. And running your own business, when you do that, typically you start out and you have to do all of those bits. So actually you become Tracy from accounts, you become the annoying boss, if you don't start at 8, there's often a reason why businesses start at 8 because there's lots to get done. And, last night I was sending invoices at 11 o'clock at night and I started again this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, so it's like, oh, hang on a second. And so I think the freedom, quote unquote, is, I'm a huge, go for it. I also believe it's about being good in business is about being strategic and knowing what you're up for and managing the downside, which is really, really important, Renee.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And so, you've been running your own businesses now for about 10 years and you jumped on and you were, you kind of mentioned that it's hard work. It's really hard work. So yeah. I guess the question to you is, why do you still do it? And why do you love running your own business?
That's a great point. Well, the assumption there is I still love running my own business.
And I quite quickly jumped into the fact that Michael has been doing this for long enough to know that he is very well suited to this. So this is what we're going to get to the Michael.
I think, do I love it? I think there's definitely times where I don't love it. I think that's really important. And I think what you have to, when you run your own business, you actually have to do all the things. And I think I see it a lot. So let's say you take you, Renee. You're highly proficient, you've got a certain skill set, and you go, you know what, I should consult rather than give away all the, I'm maybe striking all these deals or something for my company, or I'm helping them solve XYZ. And maybe you're even working with a consultant and you get to see their invoice and you're like, bloody hell, if I was invoicing $2,000 a day, I wouldn't have to work for very long. And I think what's interesting is when you dig into that, is that when you've got a good contract, you can charge significant day rates. You also have days where you charge $0. And the days where you charge $0 have to be made up by the days you can charge for something. So often when you're in a company, you see when it's good, everything's going great, and maybe you're working with a consultant who's got the gig and you're like, wow, I can't believe they charge so much. I could be a millionaire by then. But then you don't see the thousands of other consultants who were bidding for that work, who were trying to get it but didn't get it, who actually haven't been paid for months, maybe sometimes years, have had to remortgage their house, have had to do all this stuff. And so your perception on what is quote unquote reality is often very skewed. And typically when you run your own business, you forget that, especially in a large organization. So if you come from infrastructure or construction as an example, all those businesses have really large sales units behind them, right? They have large marketing budgets. They have years and years of branding, and they spend billions of dollars on branding and advertising, such that when you walk in the door as an engineer and you've got the job to build a railway, well, you didn't see all the expense and all the bidding which went on, where, I've heard recently a bunch of companies haven't won like the Logan Railway or something. I think it's a rail upgrade. And an example being is like millions of dollars were spent doing that, trying to get that work. And that's materialized into zilch. And actually it's a minus result. You've lost all that cash and you can't get anything back. And I think that's the other side, is that business, it can be a heap of freedom when it's working. It can also be the opposite. It can be really restrictive, and actually it's even worse than what you've got right now. Yeah. And I'm rambling, and it's just kind of a very, very therapeutic, Renee, so thank you.
Providing space.
But I'm curious, like, from your take, Renee, like, you've no doubt thought about it. What would be your interpretation of running your own business? Because I think a lot of people might vibe with that, perhaps.
Yeah. So I do run my own business, but it's very light on. So I'm a public speaker, professional speaker. And so I run kind of a side hustle, which is public speaking, but I also outsource a lot of the admin to manage that. And I don't rely on the cash flow to live from that. Anything that I make for my public speaking is like a nice add-on that I get to put in my savings kitty in a way. And I also have it managed by an agent. So I don't have to do any of the admin, which just saves, having to answer emails when all I do is sit on a computer all day and answer emails and respond to things in my day-to-day job. So and I think if I wanted to, I could take that full time, that side hustle, and make that my main gig. My challenge is that I speak about my work experience, my career, and I love what I do for work. I love gaining the experience and then being able to speak about that and share that. So for me, my strategy has very much been have this really incredible career that I can then share with others and inspire them. And that's really the proposition that I offer. And I've thought about going full time with that, but I've had to kind of sit back and go, what are my real passions? What are my strengths? What do I actually, and how do I really want to spend my time? And for me, it was always really clear that I love problem solving. Whilst I do enjoy speaking and inspiring people and uplifting people and giving people alternative mindsets or things to think about to really challenge the status quo, I enjoy doing that on the side of the main game. So that was a decision that I had to make a few years ago. Really comfortable with that, really happy with that. I think the challenge and the question I typically have for myself in my main game is, do I want to run my own aviation company one day? And I think right now, throughout my career, I've progressed fairly quickly, and I can see that trajectory remains open for me. And if I think about aviation is one of these industries where if you want to make $1 million, you start with $1 billion typically. And I think that rule, that rule has now, or does not apply in where I'm headed now. So I'm now working in the fuel industry. And if anyone knows anything about fuel, it's the most profitable business in the world. Oil, pulling oil out of the ground. You're talking the tens of 20s of billions of dollars of revenue year on year for these sorts of organizations that have been able to set up the infrastructure and pull carbon from the ground. So now that I'm in the fuel industry where profits are really tangible, and making business out of fuel is something that can get you ahead quite incredibly. Again, I'm not sure that I don't think I have the passion or the curiosity to go and start my own thing, particularly because sustainable aviation fuel is a new industry. The technology is new. The policy is not yet global in terms of incentivizing industry to actually go and build the infrastructure to produce the fuel, which means that it would be very, very high risk for me to go out and try and start something on my own right now. But I think at the same time, if I built the right team around me, I think I could go and do that too. So for me right now, I've always looked at my career as learn as much as possible. And then one day, I'm always curious. I'm always trying to think about where could I start my own business? What could that look like? But I haven't found the thing that's made me go, I'm prepared to give up everything that I'm doing to go and achieve that one thing. And I think that's the difference between you and Felicity is you guys have made that decision. You found the thing that excites you, that empowers you, and that creates change. And I think that you're very passion-driven people. So for me, I think looking from the outside, that's what I observe when I see you both. I think that you've found the thing that you absolutely want to contribute. You have the capability to build it yourself, and you also have the team around you to be able to lean on to continue to build on that. So I think there's many things that go into building your own business. The public speaker one is really light on. It's easy for me to manage. I don't even have to manage it. I just have to turn up sometimes and give a speech. That's perfect for me. But my main game, I think I still have too much to learn before I'm ready to go out into the world and run my own show. So that's where I'm at. What I'm kind of curious to hear from you on is like, who should run their own business? From all the experience you have, from the people that you know, who are the people that are most successful?
I think if I can challenge the brief a little bit there, I think it's about coming back to what type of business do you want, right? Because there's loads of different businesses out there. There are consultants, they pretty much they work for themselves, and their business model is they're kind of like highly paid employees effectively, right? And maybe they've just got a few key clients, and that's but they're the business.
So true.
You've then got Airbnb, which is a tech play, right? And you've got people who are building piece of software. You've got your game, which is kind of like this, trying, as I understand it, you're manufacturing a product, in this case, SAF or sustainable aviation fuel, and then trying to find offtake agreements and find people who will buy that. So I think it's about what type of business you want to run. It's also about what type of business, what's the business model that you want to operate. And what you'll typically find is that most successful people, actually, it's very based on partnerships. And I think this is where the illusion is that you are going to do it all, you're going to become the boss, and then but the reality is we all have bosses. All right, I might not have a boss, but I've got a customer, and ultimately I have to meet their needs and deliver on the timelines that I have to turn up when they ask me to. Well, you could call that a boss of some description, and they have to pay my invoice. And so they, just like your boss approves your pay, that customer approves my pay. So in some way, everyone's got a boss.
Yes,
and
love that.
You don't really lose bosses, actually. And if you're trying to escape your bad boss, well, you might just find you end up with a different boss who could be even worse, actually. And I think the thing which people miss, which I think people gives them a bad, typically people in business understand that things take longer and cost usually twice or three times more, right? Mm-hmm. And that's like, that's kind of like logical, but it's like, think however long you think it's going to take, double that, and sometimes even double that. And if you plan for that time frame, that new time frame, then you can be very, very successful. But most people think, I'm going to leave my job, I'm going to be instantly successful. And actually, it turns out you're not. And then things take longer, things cost heaps more, and then you run out of money. And actually, if you look at Renee's model there, it's a very smart strategy. It's how we started, is that we had full-time jobs, and then Felicity was doing speaking on the side. Speaking on the side becomes an incredibly profitable model, especially when you have a speaker's agent, because they take a small clip of the ticket, but they only get paid on commission. So if there's no sales, no commission. So it's great, actually. Some people get frustrated because they take 30, sometimes 50%. However, no sale, nothing to pay. So it's like, that's pretty cool. You don't have to pay for the sales and marketing. So that as a business model That's really powerful. It's also super scalable because they're getting all the inbound leads from people running conferences across the country. And so you could say that's a very effective business model. However, what's tricky about that is it's tricky to do full time.
Yes.
And so, but what's really great, I would say we all run our own businesses because you've got to find a way to pay the bills and then make money.
Yeah.
The challenge with it at the moment is a lot of people keep asking for pay rises because they're trying to pay the bills and make money as well from one job. Whereas model pays the bills and makes money because you've got the speaking. And if you've got a bit of free time, you can then look at explore other businesses because all businesses cost money. You have to pay, registration fees. You have to, like, every year just come around again, and then the government will just keep paying different stuff.
Yeah, literally.
And you're
like, to the point, like, I have enough flexibility in my day job to be able to have probably 2 businesses on the side. Like, I'm doing my public speaking one, but I'm also thinking about a property business now and what you can do in that regard too. And yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. And I think people miss is there's, this work-life balance is paraded around, banged on about a lot. There's times in your life where you will have the opposite of work-life balance. You will have work all-consuming. And then you'll have periods in life where it'll be the opposite, where you'll be like balancing, like it'll be just life and there's no work. And that's awesome. But it's very hard to get both at the same time, all of the time. And you have to, just like with investing, you only, like, if you never invest any money, which means you have to generate the money first, put it into something, and then that money will ultimately may provide a return in the future. But you have to generate the cash in the first place. And if you never really do the hard yards, like my wife and I, when we first started, we were working all hours. Our day jobs, coming home, running businesses, learning about business, failing in business. If this is doing speaking, we've got other business, we've got property. I remember one time I was working in commission-only sales. We'd bought a house. We were renovating the house. I was doing sales calls from the renovating of the house at the same time. My dad came over to help us renovate. I'd go off and do a sales thing, come back and renovate at night. And so if you want to get ahead, you have to be willing to do what others are not willing to do, right? If you want to be extraordinary, you have to let go of what most ordinary people are focused on, work-life balance all of the time and no exceptions, right? Whereas I would go, well, who really cares? You sat down, it can be quite relaxing. It's kind of fun when you are doing a property renovation in some ways. It's also exhausting, but like, it's really cool when you finish it. And it was like a 2-3 month period of our life, and look back, and like some of our fondest memories as a couple were when we went and renovated a property over Christmas. When everyone else was on holiday, we were working about 12, maybe 16, 17-hour days in tropical Queensland heat. And we did a renovation, I think it was in 11 days or something like that. We were crying and exhausted by the end. But that property's now turned into a real money spinner for us. It's doubled in value. It produces a rental income. And that asset will last us for arguably the rest of our lives. And that was a short period, condensed period of effort. No work-life balance in that period starts to open up opportunity. And I think you need to develop who's the right person to start a business? Well, you have to develop a business owner mindset.
Yep.
Business owners are willing to invest horrible amounts of time and effort and money because the future payoff. If you think about a cafe owner, they'll invest in fitting out the cafe, and it's a scary time because you're paying for all this stuff and you don't know if someone's going to actually turn up and come to your coffee shop versus someone else. But that mindset of invest now for future payoff, ultimately, if you can develop that, I would say that everyone or whoever can do that successfully and do it in a powerful kind of a strategic way, it's the mindset, it's the approach far more than the skills, because you can learn all the skills of a business owner. But that mindset, that ability the courage it takes to pay money. I remember when we bought our first house, I was literally shaking. I felt sick in my stomach. I was like, should we buy this? Is it the right one? And that first house was 115 grand. And I laugh now. It's the cheapest house we've ever bought. And it was at the time, that felt like an unbelievable amount of money, unbelievable. Yeah. But it's that willingness to push through, take a risk, a calculated one, to then ultimately have a payoff in the future. So I'd say That makes sense?
That absolutely makes sense, which leads me into my final point or question to you, which is what skills do you need to build your own business? Who are the people that succeed? And I think a lot of them you've already touched on, right? It's that being able to manage delayed gratification in a way. It's being organized, being willing to sacrifice, the niceties in life today for the future benefit of tomorrow. It's communication. It's being able to manage a team. It's being able to be resourceful and draw on your network of advisors or supporters. But what else? What has enabled you to be in the position you're in today?
Risk. It's all risk.
Yeah.
What business owners understand is you make money when you take risk. That's how you make money. That's how businesses. So if you look at Tesla as a prime example, they saw an opportunity. The risk was, well, why don't we develop a really great electric vehicle when everyone else is not doing that? Huge risk because most people are buying petrol. Huge risk. Okay. But the opportunity was if they could get it going, they'll be actually the first decent electric car company on the planet, right? So the initial gain came in taking that risk, right? Now, can that risk... Now the risk's changing. Now there's different companies coming in. So it's a new risk profile. So he's now going robots, right? And we're quickly figuring out Tesla is not a car company. It's a robotics company. And it's a data company, actually.
Yeah,
and
agree.
Loads of money in that piece and maybe less in cars in time. And the same thing's happening, I think, in VW. VW have recently come out saying, my wife told me this, they're stopping making cars or winding that down and they're going into weapons manufacturing. So that's interesting, right? It's thinking about their business. So if the people who can do business well are the ones who understand risk, and the ones who will always fail is the ones who try and avoid risk and think is bad. And is in your career, especially if you're in engineering as an example, you're told to mitigate or remove risk, find ways to get rid of risk because we don't want bridges collapsing. But actually on an ownership, you're taking calculated risks. You're always taking a punt that I might bid for this tender and I might not get it.
Yeah.
You need to make sure you don't bid for too many in case you don't get too many. So it's actually, you have to understand risk. Risk is where you make money. Risk is where you make where opportunity exists. And great business owners, they find ways to exploit or take advantage of risk without betting the house or losing the house. Although sometimes they do lose the house as well. But it's all about risk and managing of risk.
And I think what's important to call out here is when you take risk, it's not that you're taking 100% risk versus 0% risk, right? I think the call out here is it's educated risk. So you know that once you've informed yourself of all of the possible things that could go wrong, you've got either mitigation strategies in place. You've talked to enough of your network with enough experience so that you can go in and you've got educated risk that you're managing. And so in some instances, the difference might be that if you take a job, which, by the way, just a stable job working for an employer, you're still at risk of losing that job because if you don't perform, if the strategy changes and your role becomes redundant, there's still risk in just being employed. I think that there is a lot of comfort and protection and stability in a standard kind of employee job. But there is still a level of risk that you accept in taking that job and allowing that to be your primary form of income. So what Michael and I have talked about today is how do you reduce your risk further, but then also use risk in positive ways to get ahead financially. And financially, obviously, will then help propel your business proposition and get you ahead in your career. So for me, my approach has been build my skills in employed jobs and then start utilizing those skills to be paid in other ways. So by expanding out and running my own side hustle in a speaking job, by now going and getting further education to be able to fly so that now I'm not only just a trained engineer, I'm also a pilot. So if I lost my job in engineering, maybe I could one day, I've got all my qualifications set to actually be able to walk into an airline job tomorrow if I needed to. It's also, if I wanted to leverage up my public speaking business, I could do that tomorrow and switch it on full time. So I have options in that way in terms of my skills and experience and the business proposition I could contribute to. But then I'm also thinking about my future career and building something of my own. And that doesn't mean that I need to go step out of my current role and do that. I could actually lead the business I'm currently in today. And that's something I actually have my eyes set on. I want to work towards a C-suite role where I'm leading the sustainable aviation future for aviation decarbonisation globally. So that's another way to do it. You could be really good at what you do for the employer that you work in and lead that business one day. So there's many ways to skin a cat is what we're getting at. Risk tolerance is something that educated risk tolerance will help you get ahead, and making sure that you're utilizing that network of people around you to learn more about yourself, learn about what those safe bets or those less risky bets are. And there is a pathway to kind of continue to expand. Just because you are where you are today doesn't mean you need to be there tomorrow. You could start something tomorrow if you really wanted to start building your skills to one day be able to build your own business. Or you can be a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk of the world and jump out of everything and go and start from scratch and build an incredible empire. So there's no boundaries.
Correct. And there's lots of ways to do it. There's, my way is just a way. There's thousands of different ways. And I think there's too many people saying, oh, this is the way. There is no way. There's lots of different ways, like crikey.
Yeah.
It's like everything.
I love it. Well, that's been an epic conversation. I get a lot of value out of that. It's really exciting. Right. It makes me think about all the things I'm doing and what more I can do. But thank you so much, Michael. We hope you got a lot of value out of today's session. And thank you for joining us on the Promoted Podcast today. Catch you later.
Yeah.